Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Juntlwane. Welcome to my YouTube channel. On this channel, I provide commentary on political events, South African political events. At the moment, I upload videos every Sunday, so looking at any major event that happens in politics, and then I just give my take. At the moment, it's weekly videos every Sunday. I do have plans and hope to extend and give videos in more days of the week, but as it stands, every Sunday. So subscribe, come back again. Every Sunday there's a new video. This week, I want to obviously turn my attention to this story. It's massive. It has transcended our national borders. It's a global story. For obvious reasons, you've got the Afrikaner group, you've got the United States in the mix, you've got the South African government, following the fact or the story about 49 Afrikaners arriving in the United States after receiving refugee status. And before I move forward, I just want to make this point that if you are looking at this update, right, like I said, it's a massive, like it's a global story. If you are looking at this update from one of the three angles, which is one to say good riddance to the 49 Afrikaners, if you're looking at the story and saying, oh yeah, but why would America take in 49 refugees of this particular group, of this particular type, and what of that, and not take in refugees that are coming in from other groups? Or three, if you're looking at this and saying, but why would the Afrikaners want to go? South Africa is a paradise. It's lovely here. Where are they going? I hate to break it to you. I hate to be the one to say it. But if this is your view, your perspective of this type of story, it's not critical thinking. It's a general perspective. In fact, you are thinking as expected. Because to be frank with you guys, what I tend to see with these kinds of stories is that many of us don't even realize that we're just living in a constant cycle of retaliation, right? We're just always ready to retaliate. This group versus this group retaliates with over this guy, these guys, they retaliate over these guys. So it's just a constant sort of like back and forth. And in the middle of this back and forth, you have the media. The media is obviously ripping it. They're benefiting from this major, right? It sells the headlines, it's sensational, it's hot, and they win. And whilst the media is winning from the fact that we are all just butting heads back and forth, you have the leaders. You have the leaders who are just loving it. They are just the biggest winners whenever we've got these issues. Because they're probably sitting there saying, okay, cool. How is this actually going to go? How is this going to end for us? Take, for example, the ANC leadership. They must be thinking, how is this going to end for us? They are comfortable because they know that it's going to end well. Because we are on the side of this group, and we know that this group hates this other side, or at least strong feelings. They always want to retaliate. So it's just an easy win for us because no one really looks at us. No one is really going to sniff on it in our direction because they're all busy butting heads. And 80% of the time, if not 90% of the time, whenever we come across these problems, whenever these tensions rise, the root cause of it, at least 90% of the time, is the same leaders. To move forward, as the story was just going all over the place, everywhere you turned, it's just there. 49 Afrikaner, blah, blah, blah. One thing came to mind, because I could see there was also some sort of like a conversation coming up about, let's looking from the beginning, when the so-called Rainbow Nation came together. There were people starting to ask questions that, is there such a thing as a Rainbow Nation? Was there ever such a thing as a Rainbow Nation? Maybe we didn't do it right then, And the question came up that potentially the solve in terms of stopping this butting of heads would be for people to separate and live in separate groups. This group would have this portion of the land. There would be self-governance. There would be decentralization of power. Power will be given to different societies and. So this thought, for some weird reason, gave me a lot of stress, gave me a lot of anxiety, because I'm asking myself that if that were to happen, if that is probably the only path to peace, Abantu Abamnyama, what do we have? As the black group, what do we have? Because from where I'm standing, I've been thinking about this, and I'm just like, damn, our institutions are either broken or they are extremely weak. Institutions that are critical in order for us to be able to build strong societies, starting with the political institutions. political governance institutions. This is a mess. I look at our political institutions and I say the politics in South Africa is just a reflection of the worst kind of what the black community has to offer. It is the worst kind. Because in there, you've got liars, you've got people who cheat, you've got people who steal, right? And people who just don't have any remorse whatsoever, right? Politics is a reflection of the worst. We do not have our best at the top. ANC is currently celebrating the fact that they won big in by-elections. I think they won big in Johannesburg. They won big in KZN. I think there's one ward that they took. And the margins are quite wide between ANC and the second biggest party that won in that particular ward, indicating that they have support. Support is still there, right? And you ask yourself the question that is it the kind of mentality where we say that as long as we are in power, as long as we are good, as either the people who are the ward councillors, as the ministers, as the president, are we saying as long as we are good, it doesn't matter if we are failing millions of other people? Because that becomes a really, really critical question to ask when it comes to politics and governance and how we as a black community approach politics and governance. Is it to say that as long as I'm okay, as long as me and my buddies are good, it doesn't matter if the same policies that I push for, if my conduct, if the decisions that I make are hurting other people, it doesn't matter. And then you have another one, marriage and family institutions in the black community, right? Another weak one. And then back again to the African National Congress, because they hold quite they have quite the stronghold, right, in terms of leadership in our society. You've got the ANC, who speak about having women leadership, Nomvula Mokonyane, and all of them, Angie Mutshekga, all of these people, right? Yet gender-based violence and issues that affect women directly are just shocking. The numbers are just shocking. Because to point the fact that, no, ANC has done things for females, they've given females business opportunities, which is good, right? Or saying, no, the ANC has done something to support women, single mothers, for example, by opening up a social grant system and giving social grants to women who've got children and all of that. If you point to any of those two and say, we've done our part, or there has been some resolution, the aftermath or the results are clearly showing you that both of those two things are not changing the status quo. They are not bringing about the change that we need. It's not making a difference in a meaningful way. What we need when it comes to family and marriage institutions are solutions that are looking at keeping families together, not apart, not putting men and women up against one another and saying, yeah, we're going to favor this one and this one can, Uzo's born, they'll figure themselves out. We're going to just prioritize this one. What about this other person? Because the reality, men, women need one another. Men, women cannot live without each other. It makes great headlines when Ramaphosa says a gender-based violence is a pandemic in South Africa, right? Yet, if you look at the numbers of this group versus the number of males that are experiencing violence in South Africa, to say that's not a pandemic, how is that not a pandemic? Both of these issues are a pandemic. And it's just exactly that. You either select this one group over this other group. What we need is a balanced approach. Men, women need one another. I also want to point out to religious institutions, and I don't know why sometimes you find that religion tends to be polarizing. I don't understand. Religion is important. Religion is a root or the foundation to people having good morals in a society. But again, another weak point. When I look at the black community and religion, I'm so confused. We've got so many dominions. You've got this blue and white, orange and purple, pulling in different directions, which I think can also become an issue on its own. I do respect the people's right to choose what they want to follow, but it does become a huge problem because, yeah, it's so polarized, it's so divided. It's the same thing as political parties. This party, that party. There's elements of that, right? But now, what we have happening in our society, while there's all of this back and forth, we've got a major issue of violence, violent crime. Young men are violent. They're beating up teachers. We're seeing the videos. Huge problem, right? We don't have good values. Clearly, good values are as and when, right? We steal from one another. We lie. The club culture, which is something that we are very much into, and I'm not coming from a place of judgment. Who am I to judge anyone? I'm just pointing it out that club culture and good values do not go hand in hand. Not finding a concentrated path when it comes to religion, saying we believe in Christ, we believe in God. Why do we believe in God? And sisters, if we don't find a concentrated path with all of these things, right? And it's a discussion to say which is the best path that will benefit the most majority, right? If we do not find a concentrated path, I think this is a huge injustice that we are doing to our children. Because remember, our children are growing up. They're coming into this world. They need guidance. They're going to need guidance ASAP. Because when they get older, they come across things like mental health, right? Which becomes a big problem. Young people will need to be able to find solutions to life's problems. They're going to need to find a way to deal with failure. Failure happens. It's not the end of the world. Please keep going. How do we build resilience? And if we do not emphasize on the religious institutions and strengthen religious institutions, which have a lot of good values, we are doing a major injustice. The secular world or secular culture is not good. Putting this as the mainstream is not good. It's not. Every time you open a TV show, open this secular, you even expect it. I don't even bother myself with some channels because I'm just like, you know what? I'm good. I'm good for now. Right? And if we continue like this, exposing young people to these things, it's not good. It's not going to take us anywhere. I'm going to end with the economic institutions because this is also important, right? If indeed we have to self-realization or whatever, move into our own little communities and self-govern ourselves, we need prosperity. And another problem here, in fact, this one, it stresses me out a lot. The mere fact that we support people who are unfavorable to markets, we support policies that are unfavorable to business, right? Becoming more and more socialist. Because we're moving into socialism day by day. NHI is as socialist as it gets. Do not let Aaron Mutuleti fool anyone. Because he knows it's socialism. He knows. Basically, you want to take away people's opportunity, a choice to choose private healthcare, squeeze us all into a fund that you are going to manage. Please, spare me, right? Simply put, market conditions, being friendly to business does not mean giving Johan Rupert everything. Because I don't know, maybe that's a perception. Because people are so hostile to this idea. Leaders of the ANC will say, the markets. It's like, are you doing that to be sarcastic? Do you not understand the role of markets? Because if you don't, then what do you think your constituency will know? Where will they know the difference, right? Because then it's almost like people have been told to not think of markets. Don't even look at markets. Leave markets out. But without markets, we won't be able to make money. The reason why the economy is sitting at 0.5 or 6% in terms of how it's moving up or growing is precisely because we are not thinking along the lines of business friendly. And this is not something that is designated to a particular society or particular group. A lot of groups, different diverse groups, have adopted concepts of capitalism. Not because they love capitalism, because they need to survive. We don't even talk about capitalism on the radio. We don't even hear about those concepts. The state is not going to create opportunities, provide opportunities, and sustain opportunities. They can't do it. Currently, the state gets money through tax. Now we expect or believe that the state, without tax, how are they going to do it? How? I wanted to say this when it comes to markets, to simply put it straight. When someone says pro-markets, what they're basically saying, right, is, think of it like this. To understand pro or anti-markets, think of this. Where you live, your community, your society, what are the barriers that stand in the way of someone who wants to create a business? What are the barriers? Do barriers even exist? once you can answer that question, whatever scale you put it, let's say you say the barrier is maybe 8 out of 10, meaning there's far more barriers than there aren't, right? 8 out of 10. That is anti-business. That is an anti-market environment, right? What you want is a market that is at minimum, 2 out of 10, meaning your chances of starting a business are 80% than to say 20% of not. You'd rather have the skills to skip on the other side. Why is this important for us to understand? Because you will one day become that business owner, right? You one day will think of an idea and say, I want to sell potatoes. For you to be able to sell potatoes, that where do you fit in business friendliness, that scale will be critical, because you can have the idea, you can have the passion, you can have the drive. Without a market, you're not going to be able to sell your potatoes. What does it mean by that? If you have the potatoes, right, and you want to get them out, without a willing buyer on the other side, someone who is, one, willing to buy, and two, can afford to buy your potatoes, you're not going to thrive. Or if maybe, let's say potatoes, someone wants to buy the potatoes, but they cannot buy the potatoes at your price, then you have to now change your flow and think of a different way to sell potatoes. Ideally, you want to have as much abundance of people who are willing to take in new products, because that gives entrepreneurs opportunity. When you've got more people willing to take on new products, entrepreneurs thrive. Entrepreneurs create the jobs. So don't always think of it from the perspective of Johan Rupert. Think of it from yourself. If you one day woke up and wanted to start a business, what is the environment? That is whether or not, that's to test whether an environment is market friendly. I want to leave you guys with this. I'm going to read 4 news headlines coming from Zimbabwe, right? Headline number 1 says, Zimbabwe gives land back to white farmers after wrecking economy. Headline number 2, this is now all in the same window, right? Around 2023, 2024 there, right? Headline says, Zimbabwe to compensate white farmers who lost land in seizures 20 years ago. Headline number 3, different publications. Hundreds of white farmers returned to Zimbabwe in boost for agriculture. 2 decades after thousands of farmers were forced from their land without compensation, a new generation is back to start again. Last one, before I tap out of here. This one says, celebration in Zimbabwe as a white farmer returns to seized land. Make of that what you will. I know people are smart. They'll read in between the lines. And what I'm going to say is we need to be able to separate fact from fiction. Separate fact from fiction. Thanks for watching. To support this YouTube channel, it's very simple. Simply hit the subscribe button, and also please like this video just to boost the views as well. I look forward to seeing you again in the next week when I drop a new video.